Virtual reality has been a growing technology over the past few decades. You start out with stuff like the Virtual Boy, where Nintendo was trying to get their feet wet and see if they could bring that idea of virtual reality to life. We're now looking at technologies like Oculus and the HTC Vive as everybody in the gaming industry is trying to bring back virtual reality. One of the problems that we have as virtual reality continues to grow and change, we get these new technologies where you can move with different levels of freedom. You have the phones where you can just strap the headset on your head, and that's all you need to be able to get the virtual experience. But the problem there is there's not a lot of power involved. You don't have many resources to be able to push these groundbreaking games. So you start growing to these newer virtual reality headsets that require more power and are tied to an actual computer. Problem there is these towers require a cable to be connected from your head to the tower. So you can only walk so far in the virtual world. That brings up a few questions for the player then, as you start to wonder, how do you walk in these virtual worlds? How do you move around as a player and in the game that you're in? So there's a couple ways to be able to move around in a virtual world. The first is to take into account that the viewer does not have any ability to move in those instances where they're using smartphone technology or a headset that does not have positional tracking. The way you get around that is to write it into the game. Instances like a pilot simulator or a racing game where the character in the game also doesn't have to move. Is a way you can cheat the system to provide that illusion of movement through the vehicle that you're traversing rather than movement of the physical character. The second way is to take into account headsets that actually have the ability to do positional movement tracking, like the HTC Vive. In these instances, you have some amount of positional tracking to be able to create a space for yourself to be able to move and be able to walk around with your actual feet in that space. But the problem comes from when you're trying to move beyond the physical space that you actually have within your room. Whether you're trying to do a run through Skyrim or walk through the world of Fallout, those distances are much greater than you actually have in your bedroom. So what options do you have to be able to actually walk in the digital realm with a limited amount of space in your actual house? This is where hardware can come into play. Objects like the Virtuix Omni, where you can have an omnidirectional treadmill that takes up only a small portion of your home that allows you to run in any direction, jump or move around, and those movements are translated by the machine into virtual controls to allow your character to move. This allows you to move greater distances in VR and enjoy the aspects of the open world. The problem with these types of movement is that these large pieces of hardware require storage somewhere, and they cost some amount of money to be able to buy them and move in this way. So because of that, developers have looked at other methods of being able to move in the digital realm. One of these methods is through working it out in software. You have games like Minecraft. The player doesn't actually have to move in real life, but they can teleport from place to place within the game. Indie titles like Budget Cuts allow you to take this idea even further by moving not only from space to space with teleportation, but also letting you see a portal of where you are actually going to go in the digital realm. This is especially useful because it's a stealth game, so you can look at where you're going to be before you are actually there. Developers have to be increasingly innovative with these methods of movement in virtual reality because of the limitations of the real world. Ideas like the Holodeck were novel and innovative in the sense that they created these massive worlds that were contained within the room, but they didn't really realize all of the technology that was necessary. How did one actually move an infinite amount of space within a holodeck? They never mentioned that. Did the floors move? Did the walls move? How was that actually done? So technology today has had to make up for that by coming up with their own ideas that fiction has not realized. The point of this all is that VR is growing, and it is actually here to stay. It's not here just for the idea of gaming. It will bring itself into the commercial realm with stuff like virtual tours, going to concerts, and even visiting your friends and family in another space. So these ideas of movement do actually need to be solved so that the consumers will actually have a way to use these products.